watching Melody Lane. With me you're gonna have a great crafting time.
Hello crafty friends, it's Holly with Melody Lane Inspired, and today I'm so excited. I haven't done one of these in a long time, but today I'm going to be doing a paint pour. So I'm going to paint pour today, let it dry, but then I'm going to use my Cricut and show you how I'm going to finish my canvas with the Cricut. So this is so exciting, and I love that no paint pour is the same no matter how you do it, and there's so many different styles. I'm going to teach a really simple one, it's just called Flip Cup, that I did in my kids' Alice in Wonderland bathroom upstairs. I did a Mad Hatter picture. So we're just going to be using a mixture of acrylic paints, and then we're going to be using Floetrol, which will help it flow. That way when you pour it, it kind of spreads out and everything. Now first you're going to want to shake your Floetrol, and you're going to want to shake it a lot, because otherwise you'll get what I call like glue worms inside. Now online you can find so many different preferences for mixture to like Floetrol to your paint to water ratio, but you're just going to get it however you want it, how flowy you want it. Also depends what pour you're going to do. Like the Dutch pour, you want it to be able to blow across easier with a straw, so you would want that thinner. But for this one, I go ahead and have these measured cups I got off Amazon. I'll go ahead and put a link to these in the bottom because they come with they come with the cups and the paint stirrers, and it has markings on the side so you can see how much you're doing. Now in these cups I did about 40 milliliters of the Floetrol, which I don't need that much in each cup for this project, but I had another canvas I was going to pour too, and then you can always keep the leftover paint in airtight containers too. Now it's time to add our paint to the cup. So for this I did what I considered 2 squeezes of paint. I'm just going to put those in, and you're basically going to add paint to get it to the color you want. So if you're stirring it and it's not quite the color, you can add some more paint to it. And you're going to add a little water too. So you can use distilled water, which is best. I'm using bottled water here. And you just want to mix in a little water until you get it to where it doesn't clump off, but comes down in a thin stream off the stick. And you can always add, if you get it too watery, don't worry, you're not going to mess it up, because you can add a little more Floetrol or paint and vice versa. So you can go ahead and mix it till you get it correct. Spirit fingers! Now I'm going to take some of this Deco Art Ready to Pour acrylics. Now I've never used the Ready to Pours, but they have them available in lots of different colors. But I'm going to go ahead and use this as my base. So the point of this base is we want to totally saturate it and oversaturate it, because this is what the paint's going to be able to flow across the canvas with. If you just go ahead and don't prepare your base at all or put extra paint on, it's not going to be able to move across that surface because of the texture of the canvas. So you can't take like a spatula and spread it out. I just take my hand here and just smooth it. And you don't need it to be smooth, because majority of this paint is all just going to pour off anyway. And now it is time to layer our paints into our cup. Now a few things to think about when doing this. Whatever color you pour in first is going to be the last paint out. So that's going to be on the top. And then this was my first one layering for the fall colors, which I did learn after this, and I made some changes. Like for one, red. Red will become very dominant. You do not need much red. And also, don't put red next to white unless you want it to turn pink. So in my other pours, I changed this up some, and you can kind of see what I poured, but I did add another shade of orange, which for that I layered in oranges to browns to my red, then my yellow, then my white, and then I kept layering those in that way. And I just pour it down the side of the cup there. That way it go ahead and pools on top of each other. And then whatever color you put last in your cup is going to be the first one off too. So a lot of that is going to end up being wasted. So that's always something to think of too when layering your paints. That color I just poured is that glitter metallic one that I said it didn't end up doing really anything. So in my other pours I didn't use that one. All right, now time to flip cup. So you can just go ahead and flip it like that. You can also go ahead and put it on the canvas and flip it over so it stays on. But you just go ahead and lift your cup up like that, and then you just start moving it around. Now this had a lot more red than I was planning, and like I said, I learned red next to white makes pink. So you're going to want to tilt it however you want to. Like I want to get a lot of that red off, so I can just go ahead and tilt it that direction, and a lot of it will fall off. And the thing with paint pour is, if you don't like the way it's looking, just keep messing with it. You can always add more paint to get it to slide more. And then you can also add more paint in. Like if you have an area, like here I'm like, oh, I feel like that brown needs a little white in it to break it up. You can just go ahead and add it in there. I just used a paint stick here to drag it through. But that's why I said, like, if you don't like it, just keep playing with it and you can change it. Just add colors where you think you need them. And then sometimes I just add color to one side because I want to tilt the opposite side to get some of the color off. And then I also found if you want to bring that underneath color through, the base color, if you take your stick and you just drag it through, it'll pull the base color, which in my case was white that we painted it with. Which I think that looks pretty good right here. I don't want to mess with it too much. So we're going to go ahead and let this dry. And this takes, depending on how thick of a layer you have of paint on there, 2 to 4 days. Mine was dry in about a day and a half on this, but I really spread my paint out so most of it fell off the canvas. And you also want to think that when it dries, it's going to change some. Especially if you have that paint sitting on there thick, more of it is going to drip off, so it's going to continuously kind of change. And for this canvas, I'm only going to really see the paint pour in the middle section and the lower section. So if there's a part at the top I don't like so much, it doesn't matter because we're really not going to see that. Because I'm going to have my pumpkin here and then down at the bottom, the laurel wreath. I'm going to do the same thing here for the little canvas. We have all these paints, so I'm going to paint another one here. And I'm going to go ahead and layer these in. This time I'm going to be careful not to put my red next to my white. We're going to go ahead and put that base layer of paint on also. And something I forgot to mention before I started, you're going to want something to lift your canvas off of what's underneath. And if you take push pins, you can push them in the back of your canvas, and then it will hold it up for the paint to drip off. So this we're going to flip it the other way, where I just put the canvas on top and then boom, plop it over. Just go ahead and let the cup sit there for a minute. You can even go ahead and lift the cup slightly and move it around if you like. There's really no doing this part wrong, which is great. As long as the paint ends up on the canvas, I mean, you're good. Now, if you caught my live yesterday, I was paint pouring this on live. However, Wi-Fi did not cooperate, so my live got cut off twice. So that's why I'm bringing you the video here. But if you want to see the pour I did live, we do have that live on our channel. And in that one, I used way less red, because as you can see here, red does definitely overpower it. But then, once it's dried, we go back to it, and this is that one all dried. So you see it does change some. Now here I'm showing just putting the push pins on the back of the canvas. Now I will say it depends on your canvases. So I did buy a 4-pack off Amazon. I'll go ahead and put those links in because you get 2 12-inch and 2 8-inch rounds. And I think it was $15. And I could put the push pins in those. Now I did buy one from Michael's. It was $10 for just one of these. And you're going to need a hammer to put those push pins in. I don't know what they were made out of, but if you were on my live, you could see they were not going in. Now this here is the dry one of the first canvas I poured, the big 12-inch circle. So you can see it does change some as it dries. And I really wish it would show the true colors here because it's brighter in person than it shows up on camera. Now our next step is that we're going to put vinyl. I'm actually using Cricut's Value Vinyl here, which this stuff weeds so easily. If you have not tried the Value Vinyl, you must. And I'm telling you, there's something about this liner on the back. It's different, it's more plasticky. But it's kind of magical because everything comes off of it easily. But you can poke your weeder through easily, so just be careful you do not poke yourself. And then so for this, we are not going to put this on transfer tape. Because if we put this on transfer tape and try to stick it on, the painted surface it doesn't adhere enough to be able to pull the transfer tape off of the vinyl. And it's nothing to do with Value Vinyl because I tried it with permanent too. It's just because it's the painted surface. I believe if I covered it with Mod Podge, I could put it on with transfer tape. Here, so we are going to go ahead. I'm going to start and put my bottom pieces on. That way I know kind of where to put the pumpkin. So we're just going to go ahead and peel these off carefully. Which, because you're sticking it on the pumpkin's going to be way easier to stick on because it's just a bigger, chunkier piece. And you're going to want to get this set up where you want it. Good thing is for your first piece, it's round, so you don't have to go, do I have the middle? Because like everywhere could be the middle. Just gotta make sure angle-wise you get it how you want it. And then you're just gonna go ahead and smooth down. It's really important to smooth down all the edges on this because clearly that's what's sticking to it. So if the edge isn't stuck down, when you pull it up, you won't have you'll have some bleeding. Right now I'm just trying to see the spacing here to get this correct. I'll just play around with it till little adjustments. I think that's good there. Okay, push around all the edges. I like to use my nails. I just like to use my nails for this to make sure on the edges stuck down. You can use your little scraper too. Good. Go ahead and push this down. All right, so now we're just gonna take our regular white acrylic paint, and then I'm just going to, anybody else use a paper plate for a palette or to put your paint on? I feel like I do all the time. Now we're gonna take, I like these things. These things are fabulous. These are great. I'm just doing one final check because I don't know about you, but I'm like, oh, this is my last check. And then that's really a lie because I'm going to actually check again. This is a super important part though, because if your vinyl's not stuck down, like I said, you're gonna have the bleeding underneath. And I wanna get the crispness of the design. Okay. I think I'm ready. All right, so we're just gonna dip our foam brush in here, and then we are just gonna paint. And when I did mine, I didn't know if I wanted it to go across. You don't have to paint over the whole pumpkin either, because you're gonna pull that up. But when I did it, I didn't know if I wanted it to go down the edges or make it all white around the edge. And I started to do that on my other one that I have already done this step on. And I was like, no, I actually really like the fall colors on the edges. I think it was a really cool effect. And then you can like dab it too. If you want to dab it over the design, make sure you get around the edges, you can dab it like that and then just sweep it across. And this is about the moment that my live ended. So this is where it cut off. And we were so close to the reveal. We just had a little bit more of our canvas to paint. But hold on. I wanted to make sure and record this part so you guys can see the reveal because that's the most exciting part, right? So we're going to take our weeding tool here and very carefully go into the vinyl underneath. And then be careful you don't want to get paint onto your weeding tool and kind of stick it underneath. But then we pull it up and then we're left with the really cool paint pour underneath. Okay, so we let everything dry overnight. Now this is the second canvas I poured. This is the 8-inch canvas. And we could actually do the Happy Fall, y'all, one of two different ways. So on this one, I'm just gonna apply vinyl to it. And unlike before where I put it on like a sticker because I couldn't use a transfer tape just because the vinyl wouldn't adhere enough to the canvas, now with the extra layer of paint on, we are able to use a transfer tape. What I found is when I just did the paint pour, it still had the texture of canvas. If you still have a canvas texture, then it's not going to stick well with the transfer tape, well, the vinyl, to pull the transfer tape off of the vinyl. However, once we get a couple layers of paint on this, then we're able to go ahead and use the transfer tape. So I'm using Cricut's Value Vinyl here because it's great to work with and it weeds so easily. Just make sure to remove all those little tiny pieces on the insides. It's always so easy to leave one of those behind. Now I'm taking more of the Cricut's linerless transfer tape here. So I can just go ahead and take and smooth this down over it. And I find it so much easier to cut this when there's a backing, so I like to keep my liner there and then cut through it. And then what I also find is when you keep a little piece of the liner on the edge of your transfer tape there, then you can always find the edge of it because it's not going to stick to the other side, so it's easy to find. Now I just take my scraper and go over it, that way I'm pressing it into the transfer tape there. And then just peel that straight across, make sure your little pieces of your letters are stuck to the transfer tape. And then you just want to go ahead and get this lined up to where you want it. You just want to make sure that spacing is the same all the way around. And I just push it down with my fingers in place, and then I'm going to take my scraper too and go over it. And then go ahead and peel back slowly. You want to make sure all those fine little curls and everything are stuck down. And if they're not, go ahead, take your nail, push down and scrape over it. And there it is, all finished. But you could go ahead and paint around it white if you like, but I just really love these fall colors of these edges. Now let's go ahead and do the stencil one. And funny story, I actually did the stenciled one first, and I actually took this off like I did the vinyl with the pumpkin, and I made it a sticker and stuck it on, and then pulled out all the little pieces and just stuck them by hand. And I did all this, and then I was like, wait a minute, I think the surface is good enough now to go ahead and use transfer tape. So you do not have to do it this way. Although, you can do it this way if you like. You can go ahead and take and peel this as a sticker, although it's going to be much easier, and you're not going to have to transfer those little pieces if you just put it on transfer tape. Now, time to stencil. So I'm just going to take my little sponge brush here. You can also use a stencil brush if you like. And then I'm going to stencil this in the brown. Now, I used Deco Art paint here, but hold on, I'm going to show you at the end why I wouldn't have chosen this paint. It was really quite watery. So all I'm going to do here is get my brush on my paint. My brush on my paint. That doesn't work. I'm going to get my paint on my brush, but because I'm just making sure one more time all those edges are sealed because you don't want that paint to get under it. So I'm just going to go ahead and dab this all along my words here. And normally I would have let this dry more, but because I was in a hurry, because I was trying to get this done so I could get this video out to you guys, I peeled this away quicker than I would have, especially knowing that that paint was watery. I knew it wasn't the best time, but I'm like, we're going to go for it anyway. And if it messes up, then I just get to share with you guys what not to do. So we're just pulling it up carefully here. I'm being careful because it is all covered in wet paint still. Like I said, I don't recommend that. Just allow it to like dry to the touch. And now it's time to very ever so carefully pull up those little tiny pieces. Again, these are all wet, so I'm like very careful to do it. And when I get to the P here, it kind of folds over and it puts some paint there. And I'm like, oh no, because it's still wet. So I knew it was going to leave paint there, which it did. But guess what? No worries, because we can just fix that with a paintbrush. But at this point, I decided I have to let it dry a little bit more, or all of those little tiny pieces I take off are wet, could just mess up the canvas. So I just set it to the side and then came back to it. And now that it's dried, I'm going in and removing those little pieces much easier now. And I don't have to worry if they fall over as I'm pulling it up. It's not going to leave the paint behind. So definitely give yourself time to let that dry to the touch. Now we're just going to go ahead with a paintbrush and we're going to take our white paint and we're just going to go ahead and touch up the little areas that we needed to. And there we go. We are all finished with that one too. Isn't that fun and pretty? Just makes me happy. Really, and I just love how every single paint pour will turn out differently. It's like snowflakes. You never know what you're gonna get, but you can always change it as you go too. And in a second, I'm gonna show you how to use your mess over paint, the messy paint, to make some really cool stuff for projects. But first, let me go ahead and show you two paint pours I did previously. This is one I poured to go on my half bath, which my half bath is teal color, so I just wanted kind of like agate looking, but I got the cells going on in there. And in this one, I did use some pearlized paint, which is like iridescent down here looking, and that actually turned out really cool. Now let me show you my first paint pour, and honestly, the favorite one I've done. This is my very first one. I did this for my kids' Alice in Wonderland bathroom, but I did the flip cup method on this also, and I used two different cups. That's why we kind of got that wave coming through between them. It's those two different cups blending. And then I did add a little silicone oil and hit it with the heat gun. And then it helps develop those cells. Because what you do is you like pop bubbles. And the more layers you have in the paint, the more different colors that will come through those cells. So that's really neat. And I did that 10 years ago and it's holding up great. I didn't Mod Podge over the vinyl or anything. Now let's show you how to use some of that mess over paint to make more stuff to make projects with. So here I've cut some little leaves. These are actually from Alex's fall card that he did with the branch with the leaves, and I thought how cool if we could dip the leaves in the paint pour. So for this, I'm just taking cut it out of Cricut cardstock, the regular cardstock, and I'm dipping into the mixture. And what's cool is if you don't like the way it looks, just dip it again. Or you can even go ahead and scrape it off of it, which smooths it too. And I decided I really wanted some more orange in it because it's a lot of brown and white going on, so I just went ahead and added a little orange to it. I took my stick to just mix it up a little bit and then went ahead and dipped in it. So here are what these leaves look like after I was done dipping them. Won't those be so cool to put on a card? So I'm just going to go ahead and let those dry. But let me show you what I dipped from my other paint pour. So my first paint pour, as I was pouring it out, it was all becoming pink and marbleized. I'm like, wait a minute, that's too pretty. So I cut some shapes here and just dipped it in the leftover paint and let it dry. And how cool are these to make cards? I cut a couple hearts and some Christmas ornaments and dipped them. And the texture is almost like a wallpaper. So you let that paint dry and you could totally just glue it on a card like that or glue it to another layer behind it. Now check out this piece. This was the first piece I dipped because when I saw all that prettiness, I was just like, I just need a piece of cardstock. I just want to dip it in this. So I just took this rectangular piece here and I just dipped it, and look how pretty that is. And like I said, it really feels like wallpaper, but you can totally use it as a background of a card. Now I wouldn't cut through this after I've painted it with the Cricut, but you can pre-cut your shapes and then dip them. And isn't that so cool? This actually made me so excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas. And then that's when I went and started cutting different shapes to dip it in. So you can even make new art projects with your mess, which I love. And every single dip is totally unique and specific. So nobody's going to get a duplicate because you cannot duplicate any of those. Oh, and the last thing I want to mention is about the paint I stenciled with. So I use this Americana, and I noticed as I was stenciling it, it was bubbling. I'm like, this is really watery. I put just a little drop of the folk art on here and this brown here, and it's much thicker of a paint. So I would much rather stencil with that. The more watery the paint is, the more risk it has of bleeding. So that's why that thicker paint would have been better. Here's just a close-up of these. And thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. And I hadn't done one of these in a long time, so it was great to just refresh and everything, and we learn as we go. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Always be willing to try something new, because it may just be like one of your favorite things, which I have to say I am obsessed with paint pouring. I love it so much. We're going to be doing more of it, and we're going to do some different pours, ones I haven't even done before. So we'll get to experience that all together. So thank you guys. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate our Patreon supporters, our admins, and Cricut. And we will see you guys next time. Leave comments below. Have you done paint pours before? What's some of your favorite projects to do with them? And what paints work good for you? We all learn off of one another, and I love that. And I hope this helps to inspire someone. So we greatly appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe. That way you get notified when we have new videos come out. And I hope you guys all have a craftastic rest of your week. It's actually fall and it's October and it feels fabulous. So everybody have a craftastic week, and we will see you guys next time. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye.